it was actually 250 people. It doesn't show it on YouTube that watched my video yesterday under the not very attractive title of Moon conjunct Rahu, Mars in Cancer, squaring the nodes. And I think there is a bunch of people who kind of understood what's going on. And when I get this title, that doesn't seem so very interesting what happened. So thank you for watching. Okay, not a lot of people liked this, but a lot of people watched. So that was just fascinating. And today I'm inspired to look at the chart of Belgium. And this is the video that inspired that. I haven't watched the video yet. I want to take a look at the chart myself before I watch my video. So let's take a look at Belgium natal chart. Yes. And I'm gonna go to AstroTV. Now, I usually like to take a look at the current planets. So, we have, well, it is no longer Jupiter day, it's actually getting to moon hour. So we are moon night, moon hour, very lunar. And the moon is, oh my God, the ascendant is with Rahu. So it's given fated. And the moon is 19 degrees Aries, applying to conjunct Chiron on 22nd degree of Aries, and then conjunct Aries in Aries. And we have moon applying to oppose Venus in Libra. So, yeah, midheaven ruled by Saturn, Saturn in the 12th house. But it's very fated, okay? It's something very fated. Mars ruling the nodes and the moon is in Cancer. Releasing from squaring the nodes. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a look at Belgium chart. And we know that Belgium's been very interesting if you watch my channel, okay? Belgium has been the place that's been given the orders basically to European countries, whether to take refugees, not to take refugees, whether immigrant or not. And that's been on, and that's been very strong since the 90s. But Belgium has also been the case where they caught Marc de Croix, which prompted the 1996 White March. And Marc de Croix was a sort of a Belgian Epstein. But the fact that he was litigated alone and not much exposure around, okay, everything that went on, which could have led to a deep conversation about expandable children, and the fact that whoever we would see abusing these children were also growing into such death camps themselves. So in that way, Belgium plays a huge role in the history of the EU and in the modern history of Europe. We know that this is a country that is basically comprised of the Flemish part, the French part, yes, the Flemish, the French, and yes, I don't remember, okay, what other part, but today I learned that it was Rothschild that comprised Belgium, which is giving us another facet to why all these things happen there. Why are they such a source that dictates commands? And that's another layer, because when we know that Rothschild founded the country, we can look at the chart and see this was the election by Rothschild, okay, by one of the family barons. So without further ado, let's for me, before I watch that other video, which I invite you to watch, I'm going to watch it right after. And I always like to take a look at something first before I watch what other people think. So, ascendant Capricorn, 8 degrees, Saturn ruled nation, with Saturn in 27 degrees Leo in the 8th house. So ruler of ascendant is Saturn. Saturn in the 8th house. Sun sitting pretty in whole sign 10th. Sun in Libra. Sun in Libra is not exalted. Sun Libra, we know, is fallen. Yes, it's fallen. Detriment is in fall. And this is why, because Libra balances between things, and Sun is not something you can balance it with another, okay? Think about your shine. It's not something that should be balanced in your life from your perspective. But with Libra, there's always this teeter-tatter, okay, of the scales. So there we have a very undermining ascendant, and the midheaven is 13 degrees Scorpio, ruled by Mars. This is a day chart, so Mars is the malefic out of sect, which means Mars is the most problematic. And this Mars is on 22 degrees Pisces in the 3rd house, whole sign speaking. Okay, let's just take a look at this. This is a country ruled by malefics. Malefic insect is in a house, 8th house, which means that it's externally funded. Totally, ascendant means totally dependent on external funding. And leaders come from these fundings. Okay, this means leaders are very likely elected by, in this case, the Rothschild, because we know who founded the country. So we have no question about this. And Rothschild also founded Israel. Okay, and indeed we see Israel's sun in the 8th house. So leaders very dependent on the founding family, on Rothschild family. Jupiter conjunct ascendant. Now, Jupiter has a quality of expansion. Jupiter in Capricorn is again considered fallen. Mars 22. Okay, Mars 22. First of all, Mars is not a good chart. Mars is the more problematic planet, and 22 is degree of to kill and be killed. In Pisces, it's given country known for either killing children, child military, child assassins, spies that can be killers or killed. So a lot of things to do with to kill or be killed, which is 22nd degree. Retrograde Mars in Pisces. Now, Mars in Pisces, I talk a lot about Mars in Pisces. It has the karma of Neptune. So it's not at all powerless, but that might not be the experience of the native. Mars in Pisces, you think about, moving an army through the ocean. Mars is a planet of action, but think about the ocean. There's a lot of surrendering requiring when you are piercing through the ocean. We know that ocean could drown ships like the Titanic, okay? Even if inside job, it's one gigantic job to drown a ship in the ocean. But as far as the ocean rules goes, it's easy. So this is already giving me something that was not such a good election. And then we would ask ourselves, why? Okay, why would that be? Because this country was receiving a gigantic role in regulating the entire Europe. Okay, who comes in, who comes out, how many refugees or immigrants should every country take? That's been happening very strongly since the 90s, and we know why, okay? For when the Decoy files and so on that prompted the White March. So we know what prompted this policy, okay, with the trick with the refugees. So what else we see? Rahu in Virgo, 9 degrees Virgo, which means that as we enter the eclipses on Virgo and Pisces, we are beginning to delve into the nodal reversal. And oh my God, such interference with my feet as I'm attempting to record this. So you see, because I'm walking and recording, such interference in my feet. People don't like talking about this. Okay, some beings don't like that it's being discussed. Well, it will be discussed, and even fatedly so. Okay, ascendant on Rahu when I started recording. Mars releasing from square in the notes. So very fated recording. Lilith and Mercury is up there with the Sun in Libra, which is going to play a part has already been playing a part. We saw that with the eclipses on the Libra Aries, the whole issue of Brussels came again to the discussion. So whether it would be right-wing leaders talking about Brussels, okay, mainly wielders standing 10 toes down saying, okay, we don't want this dictation from Brussels, but also the Croix files again, the White March again, these topics that are very important to the understanding of the context, okay, of how we got here. Why is Europe so flooded with people that are not born and raised in Europe? And what various goals does it serve for the world? Not necessarily for the world, but definitely for those who make money off of things that maybe they don't like to discuss. So this Lilith has been playing a role. Okay, this is fated purging, fated exposure. People ask themselves, okay, what's going on in Brussels? Why is Brussels being Brussels? Why so many refugees? So many people asking questions, and even asking the right questions. Mercury retrograde in Libra, not too far from Spica. This is conjunct in ascendant of Israel. And that is, a retrograde Mercury is not giving the eloquence of a direct Mercury, but Spica can assist. Now, Mercury rules children, but it also rules law. So there we have a country that dictates the law for everyone because of an issue with children. But it's also centering certain activities in a way that makes it difficult. Okay, so here is the Spica needs to be activated for people in Belgium that tend to children, maybe being kidnapped by welfare and so on. They need to call on Spica. They need to call on Spica. Now Venus is applying to conjunct Spica. She's conjunct Spica as I speak. And the moon is applying. So this will be, I'm going to call on Spica, and this will be a Spica reverence. Or you could even say Spica talisman for this occasion. Because it's needed. Okay? And with the eclipses in Virgo Pisces, we're going to be having nodal reversal, which means that there's a change of focus. There is fated change of focus for Belgium. Now, this is happening in the 9th house and 3rd house, with the focus on the 3rd house. So we're going to have the focus on this Mars. What is this 22 Mars? Okay, what is this militant action? Another thing that we've had with Belgium, that's I think it was the Flanders, the Flemish part, that the party that now is ruling in Netherlands, that is PVV, wanted, okay, the leader wanted to conquer or unite the Flemish part of Belgium with Netherlands. Okay, they speak Dutch, so a lot of them do see themselves as Dutch, but it's giving Crimea, right? You know, it's giving Crimea for the good and the bad of it. The people who live in Crimea tell you, I'm Russian. But the people who think differently. So this is something that Wilders has been talking about for years and years, that may or may not come about. And now we see that with the living prime minister, okay, Mark Rutte, then before he sets foot in NATO, October 1, he's supposed to set foot in NATO as head of NATO. He's been litigated by Dutch citizen, but the Dutch citizen is litigating in Netherlands, so of course he can't litigate in Netherlands, and he wanted to sue through Brussels. So now there is a question over the legitimacy of the Brussels court system, of whether they can sue Rutte. Now, before you get all excited on, oh, they're going to expel us, Mark de Croix, no. Rutte had pictures with Mark de Croix, and Rutte also, with Wilders, grew survivors, not survivors of these death camps, but to do with the robber bank, which you can see with Mama versus Mafia and the testimony of Lars. There's also an English part. So, but definitely there is a questioning of the authority of the legislation in Belgium. What is the position that it holds? There's a questioning, and there's a questioning around the European Union itself. We know the discussion about Nexit, which is the breaking of Netherlands from, the possible breaking of Netherlands from the EU. And the question, okay, will we have another Gilden? Okay, will Geertje bring a Gilden? And that's a possibility that's actually being discussed, okay? As for Belgium, this line of eclipses sets the tone where it's going to carry on, okay? So to go with purging the role of Belgium in the international arena as it is today. Now, Belgium still holds a Rahu in the 9th house, okay? Belgium still holds a Rahu in the 9th house. Belgium still aspires to be a major force in the international arena. But at the time, it seems that we are focusing more on local issues. So Belgium is going to be bombarded very likely with local issues and local controversy surrounding this 22 Mars. So we're going to see a lot of things popping up. And this Mars is ruling the midheaven, which again, this is exposing both the foundation of the Rothschild, but is also ruling Aries, which is 4th house, okay? So ruling the people. So perhaps we're going to be talking about, are there citizens that are criminals or murderers, or spy murderers? There's a lot of questions. Unfortunately, yes, Belgium was known to have the serial killers that we now can think from a different perspective and think maybe those were Epstein's, okay? So, and those Epsteins could have been or not been Supreme Court judges, and people that hold such high position. We know that structurally they're required to take part in, such activities. Then we have Neptune in Capricorn, Uranus in Aquarius, Pluto in Aries. So, and Moon in Taurus. Now this is very interesting because the Moon in Taurus is actually very exalted. Okay, Finland had one of the charts of Finland has Moon in Taurus, and so this is actually kind of a bougie moon to have. Okay, it's a moon where your needs are met emotionally, and the moon represents the people. But the people is ruled by Cancer, and this is the 7th house. So there is this partners or something going on where people may come to Belgium for a vacation, and this is something that is internationally known. But we also can think about the landscape, or the landscape of Belgium, and Belgium is actually known to be a divided land, so people come also for touristic attraction, but this is also a pretty good shaped moon. And so this gives me that the people of Belgium might not have been completely the target. And this may be given that we may have perhaps Rothschild family living in Belgium. Particularly children. Now, moon in the fifth house is given a moon where people live a life of the vacation. There's a strong emphasis on vacation and attraction. So it can tell me that perhaps, perhaps we have a lot of the people that are actually from Rothschild family living, maybe secretly, maybe not, in Belgium. And that can be the reasoning for this wonderful location of the moon, where we can, absolutely see how, my cat just you ruined the electricity, mommy. Yes, I know your purring is way more important, but you absolutely ruined the electricity, which I absolutely need right now. The heck is going on here? Yeah, got a purring cat condition. We're gonna try the other. So, a purring cat condition. You prefer a cat purring? Now that we've mastered this part of the equation, where am I? Thank you. Okay. So it's fascinating that this is the condition of the moon. It seems like perhaps a part of the family is in vacay, or even children there. The moon is opposing the midheaven, but is squaring Uranus. Not a tight square, it's a releasing square, and in conjuncting the sun. So that tells me I would not be surprised if I would find some Rothschild chilling in Belgium. Yeah. Rahu has just passed their Pluto, okay? So right now, for the lunar eclipse that we had and the solar eclipse that we're going to have, Rahu is conjuncting the Pluto of Belgium. So we are exposed and discussing and revealing for the power of the country, but it also tells me that both exposure and a new form of power is going to be given to Belgium. More local than international. And the emphasis to the people. So there can be even a power to the people situation in Belgium. I'm very cautious when I say such thing because, who are the people, okay? Who are the people? The people who have to have citizenship and this and that. So is it the people of the land? And the people are ruled by 22 Mars in the third house. There can be division. I'm not saying civil war, but definitely it is possible that people will be, unfortunately, I think here could be recruited. Recruited even for army, or they rise against, the rebel, okay? So there is something that can happen. It's not impossible. The moon itself in Venus is kind of a peace-loving sign, and it's sitting pretty in Virgo, but she's opposing Mars. There's great tensions going on within the people of Belgium. So right now we have Mars slowly applying to conjunct Saturn slowly applying to conjunct this Mars, Neptune at the end of Pisces. So Neptune in Pisces has emphasized the influx of the inability to have a rigid boundary, which is essentially a property of biases. But Neptune made Belgium surrender its boundaries completely, so much so that people don't recognize their country. Okay, and it's not necessarily about racism or anything like that. It's just like you're coming to Belgium, you're seeing mosques everywhere. People speak in various languages that are not French or Flemish and so on. And even though Belgium itself is not really homogeneous, okay, there's something where the sentiment of the people is like, hey, that's gone way too much, and not necessarily just, okay, because people can still connect the Croix files to the influx of the refugees, okay, so they know what's going on. It doesn't necessarily, the sentiment is not necessarily only like right-wing sentiment, but also, hey, we know that's a cover-up. We know that's not, that was the way to deal with the Croix files. So the Belgian Epstein again. Another transit that is significant, we do have, yes, we have the Uranus Beta per se. It's not that important. It's already gone over the moon. So, yes, we do have Pluto finishing up with the first house and coming to the second house for Belgium. Where it's going to, after a couple of years, meet Uranus. And Pluto has been since 2008 in the first house. So for Belgium, this means tremendous transformation of the wealth structure. Okay, if you interpret this holistically, the banking system, the debt system, the direction of the country overall. And now we're going to be having the final goal. Now, it's not that Pluto is hitting like a Pluto return for the United States or a particular planet. However, it is a Pluto that's finishing up with the first house. It means that everything about Belgium that we need to expose will be exposed. So it's up there, whether it's from the right-wing leaders who are like, hey, we don't like to receive dictation from Belgium, from Brussels, whether it is from, maybe even NATO. They're like, hey, who are you to decide for us if we give immunity, not give immunity? And the study case here is Mark Rutte, but understand it's a study case. In terms of legislation, this is a study case of whether he will receive immunity. Would he be treated like Assange, who did not receive immunity? Or would he be treated differently? And then you would have to justify that legally. Okay, there's a lot of things to be considered. And the role of Belgium, okay, it's like, who are you to sue Netherlands? Although, who can sue Netherlands? Okay, it's right now, Brussels. So this is a big structure of legislation question. That's how I can understand some lawyers that went to being actors that did the opposite transition. No fighting. Anyway, but that is definitely something that exposes Belgium to the letter. So we're hearing the Rothschild as the founders of Belgium. I had no idea. We're going to hear all about all the things that have been, all the things that Belgium's been known for that have to do with taxation, hierarchy, plutocracy, hidden wealth, borders as well. Okay, Saturns could also be borders and boundaries, and taxation, and again that would give, because it's taken its power right now is destined to be purged from the international arena. I remind you that it's not forever. Okay, this is a cycle, and in 9 to 12 years we're going to meet it again, with Belgium again rising into the international arena. That Rahu is very much intended. That Rahu is very much something that the Rothschilds were building on. And so this is a country that's going to the international arena and with the ruler of Frau in the 10th house to lead something worldly. And through court system and trade system, because this is Libra. Yes? Emphasize on Lilith here. We'll see how it happens, because Lilith is given discussions about equity. And in Libra, discussions around equity of women. We know that the Rothschild are not particularly feminist. So it will be interesting to see what will be. I remember when, no, I don't think that's related necessarily, but that's another thing that's going on. Okay, so we have the Neptune in the end of Pisces, which is the 3rd house. Neptune will be moving to the 4th house, slowly meeting with Pluto. This is going to be very intense for Belgium. Okay, it's continuing on bringing up this 22 Mars that we had since 2012, but now building on being ruled, okay, by this Mars, from ruling Mars to being ruled by this Mars. And what's ruled by this Mars is this tremendous surrender. Now imagine a 22 Mars that is already in a survivalistic live or kill or be killed situation is receiving an influx or a tsunami of an ocean within. And this ocean within is literally the 4th house. It's literally the people, the land. There can be, and that's coming up with Saturn. So there can be a division, or alternatively attempt to make Belgium perhaps a bigger country. Okay, we really occupy land, and here occupation can be of nearing countries. So I do not see easy life, okay, for anybody trying to just unite. Okay, we can unite the Flemish speaking part with Netherlands and so on. That's literally playing around with Rothschild land, and it's going to be given a backlash. Okay, now the people doing that are not stupid. They grew up in these dead camps, and the Rabobank is infused with the Rothschild, with the Rockefellers. Again, it's infused with those. But we, the people, need to understand that there is a situation here where no, it's not just going to be a peaceful unification of Netherlands and Belgian Crimea, but rather there's going to be even a bloody fight where this is serving as perpetuating war, like really over nothing, and recruiting a ton of people to die, okay, in situations of to kill and be killed, really over nothing. But it's a great diversion of attention from the role of Brussels in worldly litigation, the omnipotence, or some would say impotence, towards NATO or whoever taking position in NATO, okay, we have seen its omnipotence / impotence towards the Croix files, okay, litigating only the Croix. Well, we know he was a Belgian, and he couldn't possibly humanly rape all these girls and torture all these girls alone, okay? Like he even if he would take Viagra, he would die. And so that's just something that's kind of on the menu. Mars is right now transiting, square in the nose, transiting the 7th house for Belgium. So again, the discussion around partners, open enemies, the borders, okay, the hatred towards Brussels for dictating so much and trying to enforce all these refugees, this Soros refugee situation. It's not crisis because it's manufactured. And it's manufactured because it's good diversion of attention from the child extortion that they do to make those that they choose for public figures trusted, the expandable children and so on. Venus is now conjuncting, okay, plan to conjunct this Mercury. Again, the solar eclipse is going to be in Libra on the sun of Belgium. Okay, so this is exactly, and this is going to be sun, moon, and Lilith. So the Lilith eclipse, okay, with Ketu, okay, sun, moon, Ketu, the Lilith eclipse. Yes, not with Ketu at the same, because Ketu is going to be closer, okay, to the 0 degrees, but sun, moon, Lilith on the solar eclipse in Libra, okay, this October, right on the sun of Belgium, okay. I invite you again to watch the video that I showed in the beginning of this episode to get a bigger picture. But that is given very, very strong purging of leaders, authority, leadership position of Belgium because of some Lilith scandal. So Lilith scandal, this is Lilith, Libra is Lilith in the court system. Par excellence, okay? It's not the politicians, it's not Mark Rutte, it's not NATO, it's not this, it's the court system. It's not the parliament, it's the court system. And Lilith, it's about equity and the scandal around, okay? And here Venus is ruled by Mercury, so children, women, children, girls, but not only. I would not be surprised if we will discover that there's another de Quaffal. What's more, we know that the living Prime Minister of Netherlands, Mark Rutte, had been the Prime Minister under the scandal of the child kidnapping. Okay, it was child kidnapping through taxation. There was granted outcarrying, okay, some sort of welfare money for people with children, and people did not fill out the forms correctly, and money was taken back after it was given. Of course, they created debt. People were evacuated from homes. Accounts were blocked. 1,100 children were kidnapped, okay, taken away from the parents because of this. Now, this is not the Mark Rutte. You need the entire parliament, you need the entire Tweede Kamer to account for this, okay? So this is quite important, okay? There are things where such crisis and such intensities take not only the government, but of course Mark Rutte eventually became from Teflon Mark, and now they call him, unfortunately, Pinocchio Mark, because kind of like, oh, he lied about this, he lied about that, and 20 years, I think, of being prime minister, and people being really, really adoring him, okay? So most of the time he was loved, he was trusted, but it's very difficult when you are agenda contributor to the WEF to keep that trust, because this is what WEF is doing worldwide. So now the question is going to very likely be about this child trade and what was the role of Brussels in child trade. We're going to have a lot of very strong points that if, you know, by the grace of God, we'll open the discussion. It's not about this head or that head, but about the structure of the court system, but it's more challenging to reach it from Belgium. We're probably going to be discussing the Supreme Court judges and what were they doing that is Lilithesque, okay, for this purging the old order around equity towards the free woman, okay? And here is the free child. So that is definitely tending to something like the De Qua files. It can come from the Tates, it can come from Netherlands, it can come from the 1100, okay? The 1100 scandal, 1100 children kidnapped by the grace of taxation, okay? And people, instead of pointing the finger to Rutte, they should point the finger to how come it is structurally possible to take these children. Because that's the problem. Your problem is not Rutte. Your problem is not Rute. The problem is how come the structure enables the people to kidnap children, and this is the structure that needs to change. Okay, we got to do better than off with their heads if we want to do something other than to rejuvenate the very system. So we'll find ourselves in the same cycle over again. If you think it's 300 years, no. Hiroshima and Nagasaki was not so pleasant. The people that died immediately, but most people did not die immediately. That horrifying death. The children that are being tortured, they manifest such harm because of their pain. They want to end it all, end it all, end it all. Okay, so many children, so many powerful voices, it's energy. And these children grow. Some of them become extremely sadistic and become world leaders, become musicians, okay, become, okay. And then you say, you catch this one person, that one person, and you say it's just that one person. What creates such evil? If you know the energy that's invested into creating and preserving such evil, you would return to believe in humanity again, because it takes so much. And so this is something that this eclipse is showing very powerfully, very strongly, okay? We are purging an old reference to Lilith. Now, this is going to be balanced out, okay? As with everything Lilith, if we tended to only violation towards young boys, as was in Netherlands, then we're going to turn to violation young girls. If we tended only to violation young girls, we're going to like, hey, what about the boys? Okay, so that is also the way that this can play a part. It's about balancing, okay? It's about balancing and giving voice to what has not been given a voice so much. So we very likely are going to be purging things. We're going to be hearing of new scandals, new connections. The Supreme Court here is at stake, and that is what's being purged. And Rahu is towards Pluto. So people are going to either take the force, this is yes, Jupiter here is conjuncting the ascendant. Capricorn is on the leaders, okay, and the soul. People might literally, very literally, come armed and say enough is enough. Because the things that are going to be exposed are going to be so horrid. And I tell you, okay, no testimonies of survivors of SRA. All children are a bit psychic. I feel energy, okay, when I do charts, or whether it's leaders, whether it's this, whether it's that. It's intense stuff that people still process. Of course, every person has their own experience. Even if you experience energy of some person, of the feelings or whatnot, is still you experiencing the experience, not them, which is important distinction to make and respect. But and I have to say, what the horrors that we are discussing is beyond imaginary. And when people are going to get that, they're going to lose it. They're going to lose it. Okay, it's not that they don't know, but there's a difference between knowing and understanding. Okay, and getting that. What I would be very cautious, because Rothschild family is associated with Judaism, although the people that do this, they worship things that have nothing to do with what God said to Abraham. Okay, don't sacrifice your child, don't cut your penis. Okay, don't do that shit. And later, after a very long argument, settled on basically what we know as genitalium mutilation, which is never by desire of God, of even if you're religious, not religious. That's the Bible. Just read the Bible, okay? But for Jews living around this area, the common person doesn't always have these wits, especially not when they're exposed to such things. All they need to hear is Zionists. That's it, they lose it. So the distinction might not be there for whether you're Jew, whether you're Zionist, whether you're this, whether you're that. Okay, people are going to completely lose it, and we cannot judge them because what they're going to be exposed to is beyond imaginary. Okay, it's and so for Jews living in Belgium, I would really, really recommend, okay, to take 1,000 steps back. Don't try to argue for this anti-Semitism, not anti-Semitic. These are people that looking after their children, and they hear that the people that do it, Zionist, okay? That they cut dividends to the Vatican, we all know, but who remembers this at a certain point, okay? People are gonna ask, who are these people? What they're doing? What is these rituals? What is this Satanism? Okay, they see people, leaders wearing kippas, they concerned. And as third generation to Holocaust survivors, that's one heck of a situation, okay? So it's going to again prompt, unfortunately, also the undesired side effect of anti-Semitism, which doesn't tend to the expandable children. Another effect is that people might want to direct their aggression, okay, towards leaders, whether it's Supreme Court leaders, West leaders, okay, and that is indeed the solar eclipse on the sun of Belgium. Okay, we cannot, we cannot neglect of what it means. It means what it means. So that is something to remember, okay? The coming Lilith eclipse is going to be huge, and people are going to be taking their power in unusual ways, because Pluto retrograde is given unusual, okay? There's something unusual about the way the person takes the power, okay? For example, I have Pluto retrograde, 0 degree Scorpio, okay? Pluto Scorpio, what do you think about Scorpios? They're secretive, they this, they that, they that. I'm an open book, okay? I have the power of exposure, so I take my power in a roundabout way. Unusual to the way that people who try to control everything, to hoard everything, to that, I go directly to authenticity. Sometimes I overwhelm myself and I flood myself, okay? I record a video, then I need to put a ton of essential oils on my body because I need to regulate my nervous system. But it's a roundabout, it's a changing way, unusual way of taking your power back, not the way of hoarding and controlling, but it can be of exposing, of purging. There's something unusual about the way that these people are going to take the power back, and you cannot predict what will they consider as attempt to take the power back, okay? There's a T-square between the ascendant, the Pluto, and the Sun. This T-square is activated by this eclipse. Also the lunar eclipse, okay? Because Ketu was just some degrees, and Lilith just some degrees from Sol, okay? And Rahu, again. So this is still playing a part. The lunar eclipse was not too far from this Mars. What I wouldn't recommend is to try to recruit these people to the army, but this is what they're very likely will try to do. And this Mars is, okay, this is why Rothschild, the election was like this, because Mars is ruling the people. Emotionally, they're being satisfied. Okay, you have money, you have food, you have this, you have that, housing. So just bring children. Okay, just be fertile. It's basically what it says here. But for the people, and the midheaven is malefic out of sect. So there's just something where the country is ruled by a clash of dissonances. Now, I have to admit, this is not a black and white thing. So this is something that the Rothschilds did here. This is actually very fascinating. They gave good moon in the 5th house, exalted moon in the 5th house. They gave Venus, yes, Venus is in detriment in Virgo. Venus in Virgo is service-oriented, but this is international Venus, okay? It's practical Venus, but the moon is exalted. And Mercury next to Spica. Retrograde, but closer to Spica, okay? They gave a lot for the people, and even so much so that if the people upset with the direction of the country, when people react, this is when the people actually rise, they can be very successful, because this is malefic out of sect. This is very bad for the leaders. So Rothschilds here, I have to admit, okay, I don't approve of infanticide, child sacrifice, all these things. I don't approve of this in Inuit, as I don't approve of it in Rothschild, as I don't approve of it anywhere. That being said, when I see election, and I have to admit, I thought I'm going to see here election that is going to, I'm sorry, fuck people over. It's not. They did something here that is actually very interesting, where if people don't like what leaders doing, leaders are given exalted place, okay? It's exalted place, but practical. They're supposed to serve the world on an international level. But if people don't like of what they do, then when the people rise up, it's malefic out of sect. It's very, very problematic if the people are not happy. So Belgian people have a lot of power. You have a lot of power. And I have to admit, although there is control of the Rothschilds, if people don't like what a single Rothschild does, they have power over the Rothschilds. Okay, so this is something that's actually quite fair. It's something that's actually quite fair. Leader sun is fallen, leader is not so strong. People, although Mars in Pisces is not very, not very easy, but it's a very deep, insightful Mars. Okay? And Pluto in Mars sign. This is something was done. I don't know who elected this chart. Very likely within the Rothschilds. And this is also to show the picture is not black and white. Even within these families that are owning of the wealth of the world, there is thought behind the things. Okay, there is thought that the regime here would not, that the leaders would not be too strong, but the people would be very strong and a very exalted place. So when people are unhappy, it can be very malefic for the leaders. When people are unhappy, directly affects the country itself. The only way to counter this is to bring other people, which indeed what happened, because the moon is ruling 7th house. So to bring other people that are of enmity to the people is the only way to control this. And this is how the system was hacked. But I have to tell you, the person who chose this chart, and this chart was from 1830s, they may not have had desire in mind for there to be this a refugee thing. Maybe yes, maybe no, we don't know. But this is chart that allows power to the people, that the only way out of this, the only way to hack this system where people are so powerful is to replace with the people. So there is a little bit of a saying, we gave you a beautiful house. If you don't like this house, we have other people to bring in. But what reason would you not like this house? Because of this Lilith conjunct Neptune in the court system. And yet, fifth house, children, very good exalted moon. And the fact that the people are expected to be soldiers and die at wars with neighbors. But they can also take the power. And these wars affect direction of country directly. So there's something very intricate here that could go many ways. And indeed, what happens with Belgium is that, especially after 1996, when the people rebelled, they replaced the people. And we're given, people talk about Netherlands, but here we're given great housing, great conditions, okay, we're nourished, well nourished, we're this, just to have children and go to war. So, yet the idea was that the servants, the people that live here, are happy, are nourished, okay? They may have to fight with neighbors, but they're well nourished. This reminds me of the border with Gaza in Israel. People were given the right to use land, okay? They don't own the land. The people that you see living with the big farms and so on, the right to use the land for farming, and they were given ability to build big houses, okay? For Americans, it won't look unusual, the old age of Americans, where they would live in big houses, okay? And they say we live in Garden of Eden, but all the time missiles. And this is very much reminded me of this thinking, and it's the same, it's Rothschild thinking, okay? We're going to put the people next to the border, we're going to give them great soil, or we're going to give them great food, or we're going to give them housing, we're going to provide for them, but they are expected to be the soldiers that protect the borders of the country. Okay, so we're going to feed our soldiers well, but they're expected to fight all the time. And here I have to admit, there is a genuine attempt to achieve a certain balance of Venus and Mars. Okay, you have to defend the country, to defend its borders, and create prosperity for its people. Okay, so it's not all black and white. It's not all good and bad. There's genuinely, it's not giving tremendous peace, but at the same time, we do need a strong army to defend the country, okay? And we do want this army well nourished, or the people well nourished. So, and when the army is the people, there is something populist about it. The hacking to the system is that we replace the people. So I have to admit, the thought that was dedicated here was not entirely all evil, and it was not necessarily a thought of evil, okay? It was also in the context where you think about a previous tribal society, they were fighting all the time. So to preserve the ability to fight and to defend the border from neighboring countries, which is, okay, third house, from neighbors, which was needed, okay? If you think about France, or you think about Britain, or you think about Netherlands, or you think about Germany, you understand why you need a strong Mars, okay? And Mars is the army, an army of the people. And it's the same thing like in Israel. In Israel, there is mandatory army service. So here, Mars 22 was the desire to give people the ability to protect themselves and the power to the people, okay? I have to admit, when I look at this chart, it is a chart that is very thoughtful and is, yes, we know of all these wealth families and all the habits that we don't like of them, that need to be purged. They need to be purged all the way to the Inuit. But I also have to admit, there is a very thoughtful process here that gives a lot of power to the people and a lot of prosperity to the people, and the ability to protect themselves. But the only way to hack it is to bring in other people. Okay, so the people themselves are replaceable by the merit of this moon ruling seventh house. And seventh house is basically other peoples. So this is very interesting how it will come about the foundation of Belgium. But even those other peoples are going to have to fight, and they're going to have power over leaders. So they can be attempt to change for the nature of the country through other people. Yet again, it's giving a lot of power to the people. So people of Belgium have a lot of power. There's conflict with the leaders and the court system and the people, as there were with Marc de Croix. Okay, people were ready to terminate the regime. Okay, we think that people don't rise against child abuse, that they don't care, that they don't believe, that they don't. No, for the people of Belgium, they were in the streets, and then Taliban, war, refugees. Okay, so this is something that we have to take into consideration. This scenario is going to be hit again. It's going to be played again. I'm not saying, it's like Santa Claus, okay? I'm not saying that everything is going to be fantastic and we're going to abolish expendable children all at once. I am saying that Belgium is purging a bit, taking a step back from the role it had in the international arena into managing local affairs. But local affairs can also be war with neighboring countries such as Netherlands. And that is not going to be a peaceful unification of the Flemish part of Belgium with Netherlands. It's given Crimea, and we also understand that Netherlands has tremendous housing crisis and tremendous land crisis. Okay, it's not such a big country, and if there is anything that it can get more land and a more classic Dutch-speaking population, there is desire to do so. So that is an ongoing thing that is going to create some bloody wars. Okay, I said I've been talking about Belgium around the time where I was looking at the PVV chart. Okay, before the solar eclipses. I said what I said. Okay, I was afraid Belgium is going to be up next, even around the Taurus eclipses, even before 7th October, I think. I was looking at this because I just came back from Netherlands and I said, well, they're going to need more land. They're going to need more land. And lo and behold, okay, I've been sitting on shoulders of giants. Okay, people were thinking about this way before me, and here it is, a very real, okay, situation. If you don't want to become Manhattan, with all okay, the associated pandemics, basically, because being in contact with nature is the only way to balance both nervous system and immune system. But you have to expand. And another way is, of course, to practice willing consent, but you have to have your neighboring countries practicing willing consent as well, which is, okay, another topic of discussion. Still, willing consent give people art of war, which the other opponent does not practice, and that is both resilience and it's just stronger. Okay, it's just stronger in terms of everything, in terms of immune system, in terms of quality of life, in terms of longevity. It's just stronger. Okay, it's not for nothing that countries like Israel would have Mercury on the Lebaran elections, where they invest in technology and technology development, and so a lot of energy is being invested into technology, a lot of money, okay, running into that, but to harvest that, you need to be okay with things that I would not be okay with. And it's not Israel related, it's the nature of weapon industry related. Like, hey, and Israel must tend to abolishing expandable children, because this Aldebaran can give the other result. And it's something that worries me a lot about, to the core of the existence of Israel, not just in the international arena, but as a country. It cannot fumble with those things that, whether they infiltrated Zionism or streams of Zionism that infiltrated Israel, whatever it is, it cannot fumble with children, with trading children, with the other thing that Mercury rules, there's the 12th house, which is jails and hospitals. And we know that Israel has been a bit of naughty girl when it comes to sovereignty of patients. Although all the paradigms, we're exposed to all the paradigms, okay, we know about open dialogue, we know about housing first, we just don't practice it, which is going to be to the detriment, to the very detriment, because Israelis would be the first to develop these methods. They're smart. It's just the smart. They're a lot of, not just the smart. Many people are smart, but the energy is dedicated for you to study. So you go out and you study, and then you develop something. Then imagine how many Israeli scientists, innovators, intelligence people no longer with us because they actually found a cure for cancer. They actually found a way to interrogate people with no torture, psychological or physical. When I was in high school and they wanted to recruit us to intelligence, they tell us, oh, Israeli found way to interrogate people without torture or psychological torture. Yes? Israeli innovation, patents. So Belgium doesn't have the Gemini Aldebaran timestamp. It does have the Spica timestamp. And it does have a combination of ability to protect yourself as the people and good housing, good conditions, that is to the detriment of the Supreme Court system, to the detriment of the leaders. But this also tells me that any people that will be exposed to what's happening in the court system, wherever they came from, they're going to rise to power. But that tells me that the attempt to replace population is going to be repeating itself, cyclical. So there is a lot of tensions to this country. And we'll just have to see. Pluto is completely transforming Belgium. And it has been, okay, since 2008. If you visited Europe in the 1997, you visited Europe in 2008, then it's two different Europes. It's two different Belgiums. Okay, it's two different Belgiums. Okay, you go to Antwerp and it's two different Belgiums. They speak different languages. They're different. Okay, that being said, everybody meant when they see what's happening with Supreme Court system. It doesn't matter if they're Muslim, if they're not Muslim, whatever, atheist. It doesn't matter. It is such horrors, and when you are in Belgium, you rise into power, but you have to exert this power. Okay, you have to. And here this Mars, it's attacking in a weird way, in an unusual way. Some unusual tensions with neighboring countries that, by the way, I would not predict because I thought it's so peaceful. It looks so peaceful, but it's not. I would not predict that, I have to admit. So Lilith eclipse, very, very important. Some changes with the leadership and with the court system. Leadership here is founded in legislation and trade. This is Libra. And on international level. Okay. And this role for women. Okay, so don't expect this to be just, patriarchy is not. It's important, okay? To make people have moon trauma, they need trauma by lunar figures, or Venusian figures in this case. So, and I have to say, okay, when they recruit to human trafficking, they put women on the front. They put people that can connect with the people, and a lot of them, women. So it's not just patriarchy here, not just matriarchy as well, but yes, prepare to change of what you think about sexual boundary violation, about child trade, about all these things. It's true that the hermaphrodite cults, they want to annihilate the feminine and so on and so forth, but for to recruit, they also reduce, okay, of that which is the Venusian, or the Venusian in Mercury sign can mean as well the hermaphrodite itself, okay, the two genders, with the XXY, okay, so trying to eliminate girl features, like something like that. It's kind of like your LGBTQ is okay if it's male, kind of idea. So that can also operate within this. Chiron 22 is in the 4th house. Yes, it's a transit. We are discussing the vulnerability of the people to whether occupation or invasion or war, but also the threat that they pose. Okay, whoever are the people in Belgium right now, the threat that they pose, and that can be religious threat because Mars is in the sign of Jupiter, and Jupiter is religious. Jupiter in Capricorn, it is Orthodox religious, so it can either be Islamic or Christian or satanistic, okay? And all of them, okay, there's Muslim Brotherhood of Satan, there are streams in Jews and Zionism that are not Jewish or Zionist, but maybe they are, okay? It's like, that's the thing. And definitely Vatican, like, needless to say, they get the dividends from all the wealth. They get the dividends from Rothschild and Rockefeller. So if Rothschild pays protection to the Vatican, then you get, like, we get who's the ruler, right? So that is something, yes, to be considered. The way of wealth here. More things that I can say. Uranus in the 5th house, again, hasn't had its final word, but it's not, it is, by proxy triggering this Venus. So yes, Neptune we talked about, Pluto we talked about. Okay, Pluto in Aquarius is the 2nd house for Belgium, but it's triggering this Mars that's ruling also the ascendant, this Saturn that's ruling also the ascendant, and it's getting suspiciously close to Uranus. Okay, so Pluto-Uranus, revolution in the possessions of the country, perhaps any patents, that scientific patents that Belgium holds, may be revolutionized, exposed, revealed, or they're going to be creating hidden patents around yes, research, but also hidden investments, because 2nd house is skill and the ruler in 8th house is investment. Certain debts that are secret, taxations that are invisible, might be both exposed or created. For example, if you think about Brussels litigating Rutte, and that really going undercover. Like, if you didn't look for the updates for the last days, you wouldn't find it. And that's a big deal. Okay, that should have been all over the news. That's as big as Trump being litigated for taxation, and even bigger. I have to admit it's way bigger. So and that's been, silenced because this Saturn for Belgium is in the 8th house. It's a hidden house, and taxation matters are hidden, although and also it's very difficult for Brussels to get loud on money laundering that's related to child trafficking. Like they have a story. Rutte might not be the one to open that, but if they sue Netherlands, there's some Trudy Verstegen that has something to say. So that's a big deal. This is what I can say about Belgium. Okay, the eclipses right now are still very impactful. The October eclipse is going to be on the money. Okay, it's going to be right on the sun of Belgium in the 10th house, leadership, and it's ruling 8th house. So this is, there's going to be some news. There's going to be some news, and it's with Lilith. So and there is Lilith in Libra in the natal chart, so that is already been, yes, quite big. Yes, and that's that. Okay, United States has ascendant in the 12th house for Belgium. Anything that goes to the 12th house, okay, granted that they're not sleeping together, is suspicious. Okay, you get something in the 12th house and you can't sleep with it, better avoid. So, okay. But yet again, if you can, this is ruling the bedroom, so you might have good time. But the 12th house means that the very ascendant of United States is basically hidden enemy through hospitality, and the ruler of the 12th is in the 1st, so this directly affecting Belgium. Through what? Through notions of freedom that are associated with some Orthodox religion, kind of like in God we trust. Jupiter's vice, Zeus' vice was incest, but this is to do with hospitals and jails, or faraway places, exile. So United States is ascendant. Is not easy for Belgium. Israel, not problematic at all. Sun and Venus in the 5th house, ascendant in the 10th house, not at all problematic. Even if you take the 0-degree Scorpio, a little more problematic, but not more problematic than its own people. Sagittarius is falling in the 12th. Yes, United States is partner to Belgium, okay, because Sun, all this Cancer stellium that United States has is in the 7th house of partner and open enemy with Belgium, but this is frenemies, okay? It's just a natural thing of relations between states and relations between charts. You're like, something's going to hit the 12th house, something's going to be happening there, and granted that you don't have a creative solution where you can join the bedroom, then this is problematic, and this is why hospitals and jails are something that we need to give a lot of reverence. We need every place need to treat the 12th house with dignity. We need to treat the people who are in exile, in jail, in hospital with the utmost dignity, because otherwise it's creating, it's kind of creating problems. Yeah, karma is one word to use, but it's kind of like, hey, if you're doing something that creates problems for yourself, better not do it, okay? Better not neglect the people that are in these situations. Better not use hospitals as punishments or jails as working camps, or like, better not do it, because when you do that, then very easy to invade your country. Okay, why was Kim Jong-un always so shaking, always also afraid from being invaded by the United States? Because the 12th house for them is intense. And risk of invasion is so powerful that when there was a person infiltrating, whether tourist or spy, you had Kim Jong-un, okay, following Hillary. Please, please, talk to me, only Hillary, only really, I want to talk to Hillary. There is a person with us, and he was arrested, and we must want to return it to the United States. Just play our hymn and promise that you won't invade us, and I'm supreme leader, and please take this person back. Could be a spy. Okay, United States dried Hillary. Julian Assange exposed this with the Hillary emails. Now with the Espionage Act, nobody seen, nobody heard. Okay, but why was Kim Jong-un, supreme leader of North Korea, in such anxiety? It's not because how big is the United States. It's because his 12th house is full of crap. The more controlling you are, the more in fear you are of being invaded. Simple as that. Okay, it's not necessarily to blame. There are secret societies and so on. But that's, general rule. It's not for nothing that we say a society is tested by how it treats the margins in society. Because that's bringing occupation, apartheid, colonialism, invasion, democide, a genocide. Okay? This is opening the door. If you deem a person with your people as crazy, with your family, with your people as crazy, you put him over there, and the over there is like punishment to them. Good morning, you've created a traitor. So, very simple. When countries like Finland practiced housing first and open dialogue to treat psychosis without pills, they were not just, Mother Teresa, although Mother Teresa has also been criticized, okay, so more for that herself, but they were thinking logically, okay, for the small country, so to not be invaded, we must treat people at the margins of society with utmost respect. No other way around this. Still the problem with the kidnapping of children, allowed the Putin to threaten them, and allowed the situation where they were forced to join NATO. Okay, they joined NATO, and now giving a huge card to Mark Rutte, saying, okay, we don't want to see a Finlandization of Europe. We speak about Finland, not about Ukraine. Okay, and this he's on the money. Nobody can say he's not on the money. Okay, whichever way you put it, he's on the money. So that's a point to think of actual security. And this is also to understand that even for this globalist, with who, okay, the people that are agenda contributors or not agenda contributors, when you think about global security, you understand that the world has a 12th house too. Chart of the world has a 12th house too. And whichever way we put that, you're going to have alien invasion, or you're going to have what? A comet. It's very simply put. But not only so. If you set up the situation like this, when you expand, going to meet problem of the 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 problem. Now, it's good if you think like, oh, we're the wealth system, we're going to have money changing hands. But if I look at the chart for Belgium, and I said this was funded by the Rothschilds, I see very clearly that there was a genuine attempt to create a structure that allows for some sort of solidarity and ability to protect the self. Okay? because they are thinking of wealth of 500 years, 600 years. If you do Hitler, okay, if you do Mein Kampf, it's exhausting. You cannot hold Mein Kampf for 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. You cannot hold that. If you think about trees, how economic are trees? They barely move, they move, but they barely move. They take it very slow with the breathing, very slow. There's a lot of economicity, okay? They don't spend energy like here, like that, nada. Evergreen tree, just stay there. So when you want to build when you want to build wealth, you want to build evergreen forests, yes, but with all kinds of ecosystem. Money dot grows on trees, yes, absolutely. Wealth, the wealth that you can breathe, that you can eat, that you can balance your nervous system, balance immune system. This wealth is in nature. Why we think so much how we can grow something on Mars, because that's where the wealth really is. Unfortunately, and money itself not good or bad, the circumstances around when money was invented, although it allows for a lot of things, also good, but the circumstances were for to enslave. Okay, to create debt and to enslave. It's artificial. Okay, when it doesn't work with religion, then they try to instill technology. Money is technology, okay? But even this technology is using to liberate in as much as it's using for what it's intended. That's just the nature of technology. So even this chart, I must say, is allowing perpetuating war, is allowing constant war, but is allowing also a situation where the people can have power. Because if people have power, what does it mean? It means that leaders don't operate like tyrants. And it means if people satisfied, okay, all in all satisfied, and they can defend themselves if needed be, the power is in their sovereignty. So, with sovereign people, they take care of your property. They grow. If you think about whether capitalism or whether you think even Judaism or whether whatnot, if you think about it, you have this much acres of land, and you need to have motion, movement. So some of it is animals, some of it is people. You don't want people fighting all the time. So give them good election. Okay, you have food, you have this, you have that. Just so you won't get bored, you also have ability to protect yourself to the death. So we don't have to worry, we don't have to manage you so much. You can just be. But then there are archaic processes of child sacrifices being running from the Inuit. It's not Rothschild, Rockefeller, it's not even the Vatican. Okay, it's running from the Inuit. These archaic processes, like we control the land, we make a sacrifice, okay? Not needed. And this is actually going at eating at the very wealth and keep perpetuating. And what it keep perpetuating, yes, some anti-Semitism, but mainly for people look at it, you see the Rothschild, the Rockefeller, the Vatican, they see it and they see, what is this? I'm sorry, dumbfuckery. What is this? It's because of these practices. Because if I look at this chart, it's not a chart that was allowing only slavery. It's a chart that allows good life. But must take down this practice of blood sacrifice, of a human sacrifice, not because it's not Jew, it is Jew, but because it's not needed. Even tribes today in Africa, they use hibiscus. It's the practices, okay? It's just the practices that we need to change, take down, and willing consent of when you teach. I think it is Rothschild family. This part of them was inbred still, and part of them was doing diversity, okay? Especially if you see in Netherlands, we see leaders that are mixed blood. And this is for immune system. So if you practice a will and consent and you allow for biodiversity, there's a lot that you don't have to control, you don't have to manage so much. And therefore people will actually study this, and to allow for the good balancing. It's not for nothing that where do the good balance of yin yang coming from? China. Okay, the problem with China is because they live in such harsh climate, they think the sky is punishing the land whenever there's harsh winter. No, for the nature, it's not at all punishment. For we the people, it's difficult, okay, to withstand the condition. We have to use technology. Yes, but if will and consent practiced, then it's not such a problem to regulate the population, even of China. So a little bit more balance on individual will and consent, and China would be even more prosperous. And it is in China where they understand that you need, at least they understand you need to balance the yin and yang. Then they think of 500 years from now. And it's working. But all these things like the dead vans and stuff like that, with all these tactics of control, these types of streams of when the sky punishing the land and so on, this is a misconception of how we see, because nature is indeed lethal to man and people, but with technology we can shift the perspective a little bit away from us and see is nobody punishes anybody, and we have a little balance that we're playing with and creating, and this is supportive of will and consent, is supportive of that. This is why it's important, okay? Because otherwise we wouldn't care about this so much. We wouldn't care if it would not make us this sick, we wouldn't care about this so much. And when we think that we need to interfere or disturb, okay, for this balance, so constantly to ignite, constantly to control, is constantly to invest energy that's not needed. And we take something that could live millennia and we crunch it up. And so when we think that we would get to other planets if we ground, no, the other way around, okay? We ground, we want to explore the heavens. And we begin to not only connect, to channel the heavens, but channel the technologies in a way more healthy to human being. And it doesn't matter how much money, how much wealth, how much intergenerational wealth, it's the opening that allows it. You won't perish in nature, but you see the strongest species, they have economicity, they have, even with the procreation, okay? And you see that what the cause, let's say, the unbalancing of that yin and yang, and the artificial unbalancing of that yin and yang, of what it creates is create wars, then create A-bombs. Now what happened with Chernobyl, it grew to be a forest. It's a good example because Hiroshima and Nagasaki now are cities, but Chernobyl grew to be forest. That's relatively recent. And extinct species came, and those species that were procreating without sexual polarity began to procreate with sexual polarity. Now, if we respect for the feminine, or for the masculine, or for the yin and the yang, okay, and whatever combination of we create, even if non-gender, okay, is naturally created, then we're healthier. We tend to balance our immune system. So we like to travel, we like to be exposed to new food, to new culture, and we bridge that with sexual polarity, okay? If we keep will and consent, if we learn to practice this, if we don't have shame around it, we could learn to practice this, then this is what creates wealth of millennia, not wealth of a couple of 100 years and then off with their heads, but wealth of millennia. Whereas the ancestral habits is being purged right now, even from the Inuit, especially around children, now that Sedna is entering Gemini. Can be done through crisis, or can be done through getting that. Because otherwise common people think, oh, these Rothschilds, this is evil. No, they're not evil. They try to think of how to manage things, but if we keep for the archaic things that we don't purge those things that we think are necessary, as human sacrifice, and we think we need that to regulate the population, we don't. Okay? Because we have power of mind to adjust the self of whether we're invasive species or whether this. And what happens when we do this thing with the sexual energy? What is creating for nervous system? Invasive plants. So we take the part where we try to diminish the population, and then what is the medicine? Okay, Rockefeller knows. It is the wormwood, the mugwort, for those invasive plants. Okay, for teaching about invasive plants and astrology and plant therapy. The invasive plants I took from yes, Cameron, and Cameron is astrologer, but he's doing also natural therapy, and he noticed, okay, a lot of the herbs that heal us are invasive plants. He says we are invasive species. No, we're not invasive. This is my addition. We're not invasive species, but when we practice a lack of will and consent on purpose, then what happens? People would need medicine. What the medicine is to have invasive species, because it was invasion. Because it's that thing balanced that. That's the medicine. But you don't necessarily need that much of those invasive species. It's basically, and then you can grow abundance, okay? But we have to be, we have ability to adapt of ourselves, and how we think of ourselves is not for nothing. People talk about love or the divine as love, because of when we love and appreciate of ourselves, then we don't see ourselves as invasive species or as something that needs to be exterminated, or that whatever we do we're not enough, but we can grow and come to see ourselves with this inner peace, like this moon in Taurus here, that allows us to grow with love. And then we become like evergreen trees, or we become vibrant and yet not necessarily so transient as humanity. So these are the things that I have kind of looking at this, knowing that this is the work of art of Rothschild family, and knowing that the Rothschild family is still, I think Rothschild family is still integrated biodiversity into its practices. So there's rejuvenation that needs to be in the wealth families to allow for that tradition to be a tradition that can sustain millennia without stirring up something that could be of a great burden, okay, to the ancestry and to the lineages, and to humanity at large, and over nothing, really over nothing, because we don't need all these rituals for to create trust. And when I look at how much is taking energy to create such, what is the MK Ultra for to create such things, I look at this and I see there's a lot of energy invested for something that essentially is undermining those that invested this energy, whether the aliens, whether the humans. It's the other ways to work with Earth and with the cosmos that can be given, wielding the wealth of millennia, rather than just a couple of centuries and then, humanity going extinct. So that is my humble thoughts. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in another video.